like to introduce the members of our Family Talk panel for here in Canton. First is our CEO and President, Mr. Michael Warsaw, who again needs no introduction. And as I mentioned earlier, really has been the driving force behind the whole concept of the family celebrations. Next up to show the life and legacy ongoing at EWTN is himself, the chairman, the Deacon. You know, there's names out there, Oprah, etc. You just say the Deacon, everybody knows who we're talking about. Deacon William Steltemeyer, who brought in his own cheering section, apparently. Next up is one of the great priests. They're all great, but we love him. He's our chaplain, Father Joseph, who years ago helped my daughter catch a giant catfish out of Mother's pond. And I'll never forget, and she won't either. And finally, speaking of big fish, we have our own host of Life on the Rock, Father Mark Mary. And this is your panel for Family Talk. Michael, take it away.
Thanks, Doug. Thank you. Well, this is one of my favorite panels that we have during our family celebration weekends, because it's the opportunity during the weekend where you, our EWTN family, have the chance to ask whatever questions you'd like to ask of any of us about the network, about Mother, and really about anything you'd like to ask at all. So if you have a particularly difficult question, something particularly theologically complex, we immediately defer that to Father Mark. And Father Joseph and I agreed, what kinds of questions we would defer to Father Mark beforehand. So we have a microphone that's being set up in the back. If you have questions you want to ask, please go ahead. Our floor director, Dennis Leslie, is down there. And please go ahead and line up, and we'll be happy to take your questions. And while you're doing that, let me just ask Deacon Bill to start us off with something. What does it mean to be in Canton?
What does it mean to be in Canton? I thought it was fantastic to go back to Karen's house where her mother spent so much time and received her healing. That's just one beautiful place. If you haven't been, please go there. The Spirit is very active in that grotto and in that house where Rhoda Wise was.
Father Joseph, what do you think? What does it mean to you to be in Canton?
It is. We had the opportunity a couple of years ago to see all of these beautiful places that are involved with Mother Angelica and brought about her own life and religious life for inspiration. So it's a great joy to be back here. And
I can't hear. I can't hear.
You can't hear me?
Well, you'll need to speak up and
okay.
We'll run that back.
I said it's wonderful to be back in these places where Mother Angelica began her life, and then where she had a religious life and started this new foundation in Alabama. So it's a great joy for us all to be here.
Father Mark, how about for you? What's it mean to be here in Canton, the hometown of our founders?
I've been here a few times as well, and we had a holy hour yesterday for the media missionaries. Father Joseph led a holy hour, and I was reminded of Mothers of Poor Clare Perpetual Adoration and how she drew her strength and inspiration from the Blessed Sacrament. You go to the Santa Clara Monastery, they have exposition there, and it was a powerful reminder. And this weekend as well, we have a beautiful chapel. I've been to, I think, all the family events, and this is the nicest chapel we've had. They have exposition by the Religious Catalog Shop, and I just encourage you to go spend a few moments. That's where Mother drew her strength, draws her strength and inspiration. So it's a powerful witness to all of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we've got some folks lined up, ready with their questions, so let's take it away. And tell us your name and where you're from.
Good afternoon. Rich Eknello from Worthington, Ohio, Columbus Diocese. My question is, we've seen this wonderful resurgence of teaching nuns all over the nations. You've mentioned a lot of them out of Ann Arbor, Nashville Dominicans. Many Catholic schools, almost now for generations, have gotten used to totally lay faculties. And so if we're trying to reintegrate nuns into these Catholic schools where they're used to having all lay teachers, what's the best way to convince them to reintegrate nuns into Catholic schools that haven't seen them in many, many years.
Sure. Father Joseph, you want to take that?
Yes, I think, many bishops actually are requesting sisters like Mother Assumpta's order, the Nashville Dominicans, to come to their dioceses. They get more requests than they can fulfill, which is a very promising and hopeful sign for us. But one of the things I think EWTN helps provide is those programs of catechesis for children, going through the different grade levels that the Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Holy Eucharist, do that catechism. And in fact, a large part of their audience are people who perhaps never had that instruction growing up. And so they do get 70-year-old viewers who write and say they never miss their programs, but also, of course, the young people, too, benefit from that. So I think that's one of the things that EWTN can help provide, at least in the interim, until their numbers increase.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure. And Bill, you had that.
I'd like to say one thing. All of us should learn the catechism of the Catholic Church. It is the greatest teaching tool we have. We will be educated ourselves, we'll learn a great deal, and then you will be delighted to teach your children, and I think you would enjoy it if you know the catechism.
Ma'am,
Hi.
what's your question?
My name is Julie Baltrinik, and I'm from Massillon, which is just 30 miles west of Canton.
Great.
Anyway, I just wanted to tell Mother Angelica that my 92-year-old mother wanted to come here when she found out that EWTN was coming to Canton. But she thought Mother was going to be here personally, and she wanted to meet her. And I told her, no, Mom, Mother Angelica is not going to be here. She's in worse condition physically than you are, therefore she can't travel. And she was so disappointed. So anyway, I just want to say hi to Mother Angelica from my mother, and God bless her, and we pray for her. And also, I wanted to ask, not that I don't enjoy the friars, I do, why don't we have some of Mother's nuns on the stage today?
Why are the nuns here?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great, and I'm glad that you recognize the friars. That's good. No, go ahead, Father.
The sisters, of course, are a cloistered order, and so they're living that life of enclosure and prayer and intercession. And it's really, I think, a testimony to the value of their life in that Mother Angelica, and the times now that she has silently been suffering and praying for the network, she hasn't been as visible because of her condition, that the network has grown more than it ever has in its whole history. And I think that's a testimony to the value of their life of contemplation and prayer. We love the sisters. We all would love to see the sisters. We love to have them here because their life does so much to encourage us and inspire us and points us toward heaven and that relationship with God that we're all called to, but they're living their life.
And I think it's important, too, to know and to remember that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Mother's nuns are in the chapel before the Blessed Sacrament praying for the EWTN family. So you might not necessarily see them on the air as much, but they are there very much and very much remembering the EWTN family in their life of prayer.
I would also like to say hello to Sister Bernadette, who is one of the elderly nuns who came from Santa Clara Monastery. I used to be one of her holy rollers. We used to roll the petals into rosary beads for her. So give her my love if you see her.
Absolutely, we will. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Meg McNicholas, and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And my question is directed to Father Mark and Father Joseph. If you could share with us how you both came to EWTN.
Well, I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, which is 100 miles north of Birmingham. And back in '93, a friend of mine was part of a third order at the time from EWTN, and she brought me down for a visit. And I was looking for I had felt the call to religious life, and Father Philip then pulled me aside and invited me to come stay and visit for a week. And I hadn't really seen the network much. Only once my grandmother showed me Mother Angelica on TV, and I think I watched some of the World Youth Day coverage in Denver, and it just fit like a glove when I went down there and stayed with the friars and felt at home.
And I think most of you have heard my story, which was I was an engineer for General Electric Medical Systems, installing CAT scanners and X-ray equipment. And I moved to Dubuque, Iowa, which had this Catholic television network, which I'd never seen before. And I just loved it because I wanted to grow in my spiritual life. And on the live show, one evening, Mother Angelica was dropping on and off the air. And she said, as you can tell, we need an engineer. And so I wrote to her, said I would volunteer, help with engineering for a year, but never left. So.
Hello. What's your name, where you're from, and what's your question?
My name is Julia, and I'm from West Virginia. And my question is for the deacon. Could you tell us how you became involved with Mother Angelica?
Well, that's a story I thought most had heard too, but briefly, I was at a legal convention in Chicago, and as I finished my evening visit before the Blessed Sacrament, sounding the call to holiness, a little sign about that long and that high. Well, I tried to pray again, but I could not pray. So I got in my car, drove 40 miles on the interstate in Chicago in a snowstorm. Well, finally, I'm running out of gas. And I said, oh, Lord, don't leave me on this interstate like this. Well, as soon as I topped the hill, there was an exit that led down to the filling station. So I went to the filling station, gassed up. I said, mister, have you ever heard of this church? He said, yeah, buddy. It's a block down the street. So I went down to the street, got in the church, standing in the back. But I never heard anyone like Mother Angelica. A few minutes, I went down, sat in the first pew, and after about a second or two, Mother looked at me like I'm looking at Mike Warsaw. And God said, until the day you die. And I knew he meant that Mother Angelica and I would be together until the day I died. So I left home, sold my law firm, sold my business interests, and here I is.
Well, and I think it's important that we recognize too the great and tremendous sacrifices that Deacon Bill has made throughout his more than 30 years of association with Mother and the network. Because had Deacon Bill not been standing at Mother's side throughout so many of those years and so many of those difficult times, EWTN would likely not be here today. And I think sometimes we forget the tremendous role that Deacon Bill played throughout the history of EWTN, and we owe him a tremendous gratitude for that.
Thank you.
And there's also somebody else we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to, and that is Ramona, Deacon Bill's wife, who's... stand up, Ramona. Because throughout all those years, Ramona Steltemeyer sacrificed tremendously in order to allow Bill to be able to work with Mother Angelica and to bring the network into existence. And for nearly 25 years, Ramona would say goodbye to Bill on a Monday morning, put him on an airplane to Birmingham, and be there to pick him up on Friday afternoon at the end of the week of service to the network. And again, I think that is not something that should be lost. That's a contribution and a sacrifice that shouldn't be lost. So thank you, Ramona.
I think, too, Mike, as well as, I think, Bill, you witnessed the power of suffering like Mother Angelica has witnessed to us. Because I know I've seen, well, Bill's had heart attacks, you had a hip replacement, detached retina, pneumonia, and who knows what else he's not telling us. But I know Mother used to call him Job at times. So he, as the witness to the power of sacrifice and prayer, you know, how we have fruitfulness in our lives. So.
Absolutely. What's your question?
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm from Colorado, and I just want to say that we love you all. Mother, Deacon, EWTN, the adult education is wonderful. We need it. Could someone refresh in my mind the story of Mother dancing in the parking lot?
Sure.
I think what you're referring to was January 28th, 1998, was the day that Mother Angelica was healed. She, through much of her life, had 2 braces, one on each leg, one on her back as well. And for 5 years, and different times when I traveled with her, she always had these crutches were her constant companion. And when you accompanied Mother, you always handled those crutches for her on the airplane, putting them in the overhead bin or in the vehicle that you're traveling in. And it was on January 28th, Feast of St. Thomas Aquinas, 1998, when she was completely healed, praying the rosary. And it was the day after that, so she no longer needed those braces or those crutches. She bought her first pair of regular shoes, and that was a big thing for her. But the very next day, she was meeting with the crew outside of what was a carport then. And just everyone was out there, and they were smiling, and they just couldn't believe. Here's Mother walking around, and she grabs one of the shyest friars, and she starts dancing with them. And everybody was just so happy. But what Mother said, she said, she never asked for that healing, but she believed that when she saw that reaction of people and how it gave them hope, how it strengthened their faith, she understood why God had given her that miracle was for the benefit of all those people that knew her.
Hi, welcome.
Hello, my name is Maria from Ashtabula, Ohio. I'd like to know where you guys got your religious names.
What?
She'd like to know where the friars got their religious names. So that doesn't apply to either of us.
Yeah.
I got my religious name from Father Joseph. He picked it for me. So you got yours from Mother, right?
From my superior at that time, but the sisters had, because I had worked as an engineer, had often been calling me Joseph, because I would fix different things for them. So that was the name they chose for me, Joseph.
And occasionally we still allow you to fix things. It's kind of an inside joke, actually, but I had an email from Father Joseph the other night that said to me, apparently I'm still in engineering, so he was working on a microphone for us. So he still practices his engineering skills every day. Welcome. What's your name and where you're from, and what's your question?
My name is Mary Kay Soika. I'm from Salem, Ohio. I'm experiencing the church as universal here, but so many parishes, including my mom's back in Pennsylvania, are experiencing consolidating churches and closing of churches, and it's sometimes hard to get past that feeling of those 4 walls. And I was wondering if you could speak some word of comfort to those who are going through this and have such hurt feelings that their parishes are closing.
Sure. Father Joseph?
It is an unfortunate reality today, with geographic changes and loss of membership for one reason or another, that just it becomes a situation, and then also the number of priests being reduced. The bishops have to come to certain conclusions that are unavoidable, as unfortunate as they are. But I think at the same time we have to look at that the Holy Spirit is always doing something new, and that he's ever ancient, but he's also ever new. And so there is a richness, a heritage that we have inherited, and we have this 2,000-year heritage that is handed on to us. but also the Holy Spirit is always doing something new in us. And so, how is He using us? You know, that He wants to use us each day, that we all have a mission to complete in our lives. You know, everything in this life is passing away. Even the most beautiful things, even the things that we treasure, it's all passing away. But the one thing that endures forever is our life with God. And so it is for us to each day say, what is your will for me today, Lord? And to try to fulfill that. And that's an exciting way to live. Because I've been with Mother for 25 years, and it's been quite an adventure. You know, it's been a lot of new things happening. And there were things that we had to kind of leave behind, too. When Mother Angelica and the sisters were living at the monastery in Irondale, the television network bloomed out of that. But there came a point where there was this new monastery that was needed, that had been inspired in Mother, and it came a time where Mother and the sisters left. Well, that was devastating. You know, it was a very devastating thing for the employees and for all of us to go through that. But what we've seen now is something beautiful. Because now you have 60 miles to the north, you have this beautiful shrine. People go there, they're spiritually renewed. We have confessions 2, sometimes 3 times a day. For the faithful, there's a whole group of faithful that have moved into that area. People have been affected. And the network, too, has grown and developed in its own way there. So I think we have to always face the future with hope, even in spite of the disappointments, and say, what's God doing here, and try to be faithful to it.
You know, and I think if everybody here would pray all 15 decades of the rosary every day, go to confession once a month, your parish would become so alive, they would not close that parish. We must return to the Mother of God and pray the rosary. Go to confession. Use the sacramental life in church.
Hi. My name is Gabriella. I'm from New York, and my husband is going to kill me. It's for Deacon Bill. My husband and I, well, more him, is discerning about the diaconate, and my husband and I and our family now have grown so much with EWTN and our faith that we wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And I was wondering if Deacon Bill can share some words of wisdom for my husband who's discerning to become a deacon as well.
If your husband and you together pray every day the rosary, all 15 decades, and if your husband commits his life to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and if you realize that you must read at least a paragraph, not that much, sentence, every day, discuss the Scripture, because what's taking place in you and your husband will be a transformation of life as you begin to change yourself and draw closer to the presence of God in your life. Just imagine right now, we're all in His silent presence. Tonight is not about all of you, not about any of these priests. Tonight is about the living God. It's all about the Lord and nobody else. You're His work. Pray, pray.
Hello, sir. Welcome. What's your name?
Thank you. My name
city,
is
and
Dick
question?
Morris from Montclair, New Jersey. My question is really to Mr. Warsaw. My son and I really enjoy a lot of the programs, or some of the ones that we try to find on the early church, although particularly the one with the Bogles about the Crusades.
Yes.
We find them fascinating. Are there any plans, although they're sometimes hard to find? I get them on the weekdays. I think we get the Bogle show at 5:30. Are there any plans in the next coming season for more shows, more programming on the early church?
Yes. I think we've found certainly that that is a topic that has a great deal of interest among our audience. So you're not alone in your interest in that. And we typically have many different projects in development at any given time, and some of those projects can take 1 to 3 or more years even to be produced. But we certainly have had tremendous feedback. particularly on the show with the Bogles that you mentioned. So I think, yes, you can definitely look forward to more and continued series from them.
My name is Martha Patton from Rocky River, Ohio, a suburb of Cleveland, and I've enjoyed Mother Angelica for at least 25 years, and I brought my friend Jean Gallagher here who has a question.
All right.
I'm Jean Gallagher from Cleveland, and I'd like to know who that sister was who, first of all, read that prayer that Mother Angelica said that initiated the network, and you often hear her on the radio reading prayers. And she was the one who said when they used to have the Stations of the Cross program on Fridays on mornings at 5:30 on the radio. She had like a British accent or Australian accent. Who is she, and how long has she been with Poor Clares?
Well, we know exactly who you're talking about. You're talking about Sister Grace Marie, who for many, many years has, as you point out, has voiced the prayers and so many other items for the network. And Father Joseph, you recall Sister Grace Marie's...
yes, she's been there probably 26, 27, 28 years. But she and a number of other sisters have begun a new foundation in San Antonio, Texas. So they're actually beginning that as of about a year and a half ago. They started that initiative.
And Sister Grace Marie was an Anglican.
That's her right there on the screen.
Was an Anglican. And I remember she was in the chapel praying, and Mother wanted to see her. So I went in with her, and Mother Angelica said, "You have a vocation?" And Sister said, "Well, I'm an Anglican." And Mother said, "That's okay. Come on in. We'll fix you up."
And Sister Grace Marie, even though she's gone to Texas, still does voiceover work for us on occasion. So you can look forward to continuing to hear her voice for years to come. So. Well, welcome to our family celebration.
Good evening. My name is Grace. I'm from Michigan. I give glory to God for what you guys are doing, for what He's using you do. I found out EWTN. I visited a place in Ohio and saw it on the television. And I went home and I called my television supply. I said, "Where is EWTN?" He said, "You have to pay more money to get it." I said, "Give me the money. I will pay you and get EWTN." And since then, he has kept me on praying. It's been wonderful. I went home to Nigeria and I said, "Do you guys have EWTN?" They said they have. And they're enjoying it too, and I enjoyed it too there. My only question is, at the Mass where we're supposed to share the sign of peace, I see you omit it even on the television, and even here today, we didn't share the sign of peace. I want to know why. Because I know St. Francis was my kind of patron guidance when I was younger. His prayer is always in my room. I say that prayer, and that prayer has led me so far. And the sign of peace, omitting it at Mass, I don't know why. I want to know the answer.
Father Joseph, that sounds like a question for you.
And there is some discussion in the church about when's the most appropriate time for that sign of peace to take place. And there are some that say, well, perhaps right after the consecration is not the best place. But what our understanding is that it is something optional, and of course, in the community, you have many other opportunities for fraternal life and so on. And so the emphasis that Mother always had was on the devotion and reverence for the Blessed Sacrament, and to use that time as a way of preparation for the reception of the Blessed Sacrament.
Hello, sir. Welcome to our family celebration. What's your question?
Thank you, Michael. My name is John, and we're here from Ontario in Canada, and my wife's name is Rita. And not a question, just a word of testimony about the far-reaching legacy of EWTN. It's practically the only TV station we watch. Not only that, but our pastor, which is in a small rural parish, but he has 4 churches to look after, and he is very frequently referring to something he has heard in a homily or in some other talk on EWTN, and recommending it to our parishioners, and recommending EWTN as the only TV station they should be watching. Just wanted to let you know.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that everyone in this room can also help to spread the word about EWTN. As you saw before we began our panel, we had a presentation on our Media Missionaries program. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of that Media Missionaries program. And if you're not currently a media missionary, then while you're here, you should go to the Media Missionaries booth and sign up. And if you're joining in through television or radio, you can go to our website and find out more information about the Media Missionaries program. Because the EWTN Media Missionaries program is a way for each one of us to build awareness of EWTN in our parishes, in our schools, in our communities. And through EWTN and through building awareness of EWTN, we can bring about a transformation of our parishes and our communities. So it's a vital program that EWTN has, and I would encourage you all, if you're not already an EWTN Media Missionary, to go ahead and sign up and evangelize your pastor about the benefits of EWTN and what EWTN can do for your parish priest in his own ministry in serving his people. EWTN can be a great resource if parish pastors and priests will use it. So, again, I encourage you, sign up to be a media missionary. Sir?
Yes, my name is Gary from Dayton, Ohio, and I was just curious if EWTN will be providing programming for regarding the changes that will be forthcoming in the liturgy next year, in order to be able to help the laity to understand not only those changes, but maybe the reasoning and the beauty behind those changes.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we have had a number of discussions about programming and catechesis that we can do and will be doing in anticipation of the introduction of the new sacramentary next year. In fact, yesterday, as part of our EWTN board meeting, we discussed that briefly, and we have are setting up a sort of a working group within the network staff as well as some outside experts to put together some programming that'll help to make that transition, because that certainly was the translation, and the appropriate translation of the Missal was certainly an issue that Mother Angelica spoke about frequently and quite often on her live shows throughout the year. And now, over the years now, we're finally at that point where that new and improved and revised translation is going to come into effect, and I think we need to share the beauty of that with people. So look for that to be coming to EWTN.
Good afternoon.
Good
My
afternoon.
name is Ruth Newman. I'm from Middletown, Ohio. And I just want to thank EWTN, the friars, and everyone associated with EWTN. They have brought reverence and sacredness back to me and the church, and I appreciate that. Thank you. My question, though, is when I was at Hanceville and attending Mass, the singing of the nuns so inspired me. It was such a blessing. I was wondering if it would ever be possible for them to record some Catholic songs. It's so hard to find Catholic music these days.
Sure.
That's
Well,
it.
Sure. I think actually the nuns do have some CDs available. They do, and I think they are, in fact, available from EWTN Religious Catalog. I'm not sure if they have them over in the catalog shop today, but if not, you can go to the catalog website or call catalog, and they can assist you with that. And I think going forward, that's certainly something that the nuns would be interested in continuing to do. So you can look for those, I'm sure, in the future.
My name is Myron from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'd like to address this question to Mr. Warsaw. In Africa, there's a plethora of Catholic priests. There's a lot of Catholic priests and a lot of Catholic seminarians who can't even find places in the seminaries in Africa. So the Holy Spirit is really doing his thing in Africa. Can EWTN do something to promote the simple transfer of priests from Africa to the United States and stop these church closings and have an outreach that's going to reach out to African Americans?
Mm-hmm. Sure, and I think that there are many things that certainly we can do about that. Some of those issues are certainly beyond the scope and the capacity of EWTN to directly address. But I think, like all things, we can be a source of information to make people aware of the tremendous blessings that the church in Africa has and can share with the rest of the world. And certainly, EWTN has made over the last several years a huge commitment to the church in Africa. We work and collaborate with a number of bishops, a number of dioceses in presenting radio programming, television programming, and we recently actually had a conversation with a fairly high-ranking representative of the Holy See about some additional collaborative efforts in Africa and working with the church in Africa. We actually, most people don't know, but EWTN actually has an office in Cameroon. We actually have an office there that services and works with the church and distribution outlets in Africa to bring EWTN to Africa. So we'll do what we can.
And something else, Mike, that people don't realize, too, we also have a lot of interns that come from Africa and India who are interested in learning. They want to start a radio station. Their bishops direct them to start a radio station in Africa or India, and we have a lot of the interns coming over to study at the network to see how they do things.
That's right. It's a great program. We actually, more than 10 years ago, put into place an internship for priests who are studying and obtaining their licentiate in sacred theology and communications from the Pontifical University of the Holy Cross and other of the pontifical universities in Rome. They'll come, they'll spend a month, they'll work with us, and I think one of the great things is they work also not just in the television studios or in the radio side, but they also help in the sacramental life of the network and celebrating masses and hearing confessions. So it's an immersive program that really, I think, focuses them on what they can do in social communications for the church. We had an interesting story a couple of years ago with an intern from the Philippines, and he was on the Mass. He celebrated the morning Mass on the network and preached. And when he got back to his room there on the campus of EWTN, he had a call from his bishop. And he thought, first off, well, what have I done? My bishop's calling me from the Philippines. This can't be good. And when he reached his bishop, the bishop said, well, Father, I saw you on EWTN. I was watching the Mass, and I saw you preaching. And since you're there, I want you to know that when you come back to my diocese, to our diocese, I want you to establish a diocesan radio station. So if you can, while you're in Birmingham, talk to the folks at EWTN about how that can happen and see if we can get some support for programming and so forth. So we sent Father back to the Philippines at the end of his internship with a satellite receiver in his suitcase, and a short time later, they established a radio station downlinking EWTN's radio service for this very poor and rural area in the Philippines. So it's a program that also produces some very practical and concrete results around the world. So,
if I could say something too, I know this is far afield from your question, but I know that the church in Africa, is obvious. So the people of Africa have suffered so much, and the church there is so alive, as the person pointed out. I remember when we were in Rome for the Close for the Year of Priests, the Holy Father was going through the crowd in the Pope Mobile, and he's waving and blessing, and he sees this group of young African priests, and his face just lights up, and he gives them like a special blessing. And I think we've all felt that. I know from from listening to the interns that come to the network, there's something about a spirit of hope and enthusiasm that they really bring to the church. And when I was in World Youth Day in Australia, I was walking across this big crowd, and all of a sudden I get this call out, Father Mark, and it was a priest with his youth group from somewhere in southern Africa. He said, we watch the network every week, you know, and I couldn't believe it. It was so heartening to hear that, you know, serving the people in Africa, the network could have some share in that, so.
Welcome to the family celebration.
Hi, my name is Marilyn, and I'm from California, and this is the first time we've ever heard about a family celebration, but we're very happy to be here. Anyhow, I have a quick question. When we're watching EWTN and with the Pope in Rome or beatifying someone or canonizations, even at Irondale for the Mass, lots of times the camera just focuses on a statue or the crucifix. And we as laity, I love seeing the prelates and the priests and the religious in the audience in St. Peter's. And it gives us such hope. And so when there's so much on a statue that we've seen, 20 times already, that I wonder why, if it's inappropriate or they just can't get a camera there, or, why can't there be more on the nuns and the priests there?
Sure. Well, great question. And while most people think that EWTN has camera crews all over the world and that we've got our crews all over St. Peter's Square for those events, that is not, in fact, the case. EWTN actually collaborates with Vatican Television. There is a CTV, Vatican TV, is actually a television production operation that is part of the Holy See, and they do the production of all of the masses and events with the Holy Father in St. Peter's and at the Vatican. They also work with state broadcasters in other countries. So, for example, when the Holy Father was recently in Britain, we worked with Vatican TV and the BBC in order to get the video footage of those events back. So the reality is EWTN doesn't really have much of a voice in how those events are produced and shot.
Or in Washington, D.C.
Certainly where we do produce events, I think our approach to televising masses is to try to make them as devotional and as appropriate as they can be, so that as a viewer or as a listener, they're not interrupted, but rather presented in a way as though you were actually there at the Mass yourself. That's our goal. If we fall short sometimes, I'm sorry, but we do the best we can. Thank you.
My name is Karen, and I'm from Streetsboro, Ohio, and I admire you guys, the fact that you guys do prayer at your workplace, and I'm just curious how we can bring prayer and the love of Jesus in our workplaces, because it seems like you come to work every day and there's so much tension and craziness and what have you, and it'd just be nice to be able to share your faith amongst your colleagues, and I'm just curious, what is the best way to do that? I mean, besides offering prayers.
Bill, why don't you answer that?
Well, as you gather together 2 or 3 that feel like you do, and you begin to pray, you will find that the Lord will bless that. 2 or 3 others will come to join you. I remember I was visiting a business in Washington, D.C., in one of the federal buildings, which is a no-no to pray. But this one man, this is a deacon, he had a group that came together 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening, and they'd gather briefly and pray. Couldn't pray the rosary, but they would pray, share scripture, something of that nature that would make them more aware of the presence of God and set an example. Each of us just to do our part. Don't be shaky. Don't be embarrassed. Just step out and do it, and it'll work.
Well, and I can tell we have a very special question here next. Hi there.
Hello, my name is Christopher Deacon. I'm from Beaver, Pennsylvania,
and I have a question about the Bible.
Okay.
When Jesus went up to the mountain and he spoke to Moses and Elijah, and Peter saw it, how did he know it was Moses and Elijah?
Okay.
We have a theologian in our midst.
Absolutely. I'm impressed. You could be a future EWTN producer. That sounds like a question for Father Mark.
Well, Father Mitch always says you can recognize Elijah by his tailor. He and John the Baptist have the same tailor of camel hair, same diet, eating locusts, but I don't really know that. I don't know how he do. Maybe he's holding the commandments. I'm not sure.
Father Joseph, you want to take a shot at it?
Father, I'm his grandfather, and I want you to know that Father Angela Shaughnessy and I are both graduates of St. Cecilia Graduate Grade School in Rochester, and I don't think we knew the answer either.
Well, thank you so much to all of you who came up to the microphone and asked questions again, as these events have been in the past. It's remarkable and a lot of fun to hear the different questions and the different perspectives that members of our EWTN family from around the world really have. And so in closing, let me just ask each of our panel here for a final thought. Father Mark?
One thing, too, I was impressed by yesterday was Mother Angelica, coming down to Birmingham at 38 years old, and with just such simplicity and trust and obviously humble beginnings, but just a unshakable confidence in the Lord and following God and His will. And Father Joseph reminded us yesterday at the Holy Hour to pray for zeal, pray that you have that fire in your heart to do whatever it is that God's asking you to do. I think Mother is such a great witness to that.
When we talk about the legacy of Mother, I think that's something I'll always carry with me. And what really inspired me to say I'll volunteer for a year was just her remarkable faith. And I knew that she was a woman who really did know the Lord, because she spoke to Him as if she really did know Him as a personal friend, as a beloved of her soul. And that's for each of us to take that example of Mother, her great faith, her great love of the Lord. Where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do, Lord? Send me. Here I am. We could say the words of Our Lady. Be it done unto me according to your word. And as Father Mark just mentioned, that zeal for souls that Mother had. When I was at a vice president meeting one time, this is what she said to the vice presidents, that this is the question: how can we reach the greatest number of souls? And that's something that those vice presidents that were there then are still with the network today, like Mike Warsaw, carrying on that tradition of Mother Angelica and her spirit, and reaching even more people for the gospel.
Well, as you know, I've been there a few years. If you ever saw Mother smile, Mother's skin is just brilliantly white. She's very simple, but she has a smile. And when you look at her face, you see Jesus. And I think that's the gift I'd like to give each of you tonight. Know Jesus so much that it just radiates out, and smile. Brighten up the world that you're there. Smile. Mother has the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. And recently when I visit her, she takes my hand. She cannot talk. She's bedridden. She cannot speak. But she squeezed my hand, and we look at each other and smile. That's all we need to do. So be Jesus and smile till your heart bursts forth.
Well, I can't top that, so I'm just going to leave it at that. I want to thank you all for being here as part of this family talk again, it's been a wonderful, wonderful hour together.